Now we have discussed till question number 5. Now in this part 2, we will start discussion of the 10 marker question. And I have purposefully divided the entire discussion into two different parts, that is 15 marker and 10 marker, so that you will be efficient watching the videos. Okay. So now coming to the question number 6, that is India's approach to the West Asia has been transformed from primarily driven by energy and diaspora to the comprehensive policy, but not free from the challenges. Now, in this question, there must be a direct focus on comprehensive policy, because this is a 10 marker question. You cannot go in detail with respect to energy and diaspora. You will have to just give a passing reference of energy, okay, and diaspora. After mentioning comprehensive policy, just switch over to what are the challenges with India's relation with the West Asia. Understood? So now coming to the question, first of all, you can talk about the importance of West Asia. And here what you can talk that geostrategic significance, geopolitical significance, and geoeconomic significance of the West Asia. And the question is, in the terms of geoeconomic, we are not focusing only on energy that is coming or that is imported by India from the West Asia, but also we are focusing on trade, investment. Okay. Now, in the West Asia, whenever you are looking into the West Asia, you will have to just give a passing reference of energy and diaspora. So you can simply say that in West Asia, around 11 million of the Indians people are living there, then they are sending remittances. Then you can say 70% of energy needs are being met by the West Asian countries. After that, you will have to switch over to the comprehensive policy. Okay. Now, what is the comprehensive policy? Comprehensive policy can be best understood from the pillars of the Look West policy. So, what is the pillar of the Look West policy? The first pillar of the Look West policy is cooperation on combating terrorism. Cooperation on combating terrorism. Second pillar is trade and investment. Third is economic cooperation. Fourth is strengthening soft power. This is the pillar of our comprehensive policy towards the West Asia. And now what you can do in such kind of question, that you can understand from the perspective that how India's relation with individual countries in the West Asia is going. But in this question you have a limitation, that this is a 10 marker question, so you cannot talk about the India's relationship with Saudi Arab, Iran, Oman, Kuwait, Qatar, UAE equally. So you will have to think that on which countries I need to focus upon. So I will advise you to focus upon India's relation with UAE, India's relation with Saudi Arab, India's relation with Iran. Majorly we will focus upon this. And even in this, we will not go in detail. Just we will give a passing reference that how the relationship is being deepening on the terms of trade and investment and the military exercises and sharing of intelligence, and a lot about the strategic convergence and less about the diaspora, or should not be any mentioning of diaspora and energy whenever we are talking about the comprehensive policy. Okay. So now in Iran, you can only talk about the Chabahar port, and then you can say that how Iran is central or a gateway to the Central Asia, that is Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. Okay, so basically India has also connect Central Asia policy. Then how Look West policy and Central Asia is interlinked through Iran. This is a geostrategic significance, or you can say the position of the Iran in such a way that India is looking for a strategic convergence with the Iran. Now, in the case of India, Saudi Arab, you can talk about that we have comprehensive strategic dialogue. Comprehensive strategic dialogue. Okay, and this dialogue talks about sharing of intelligence and joint military exercises. Okay, then you can talk about setting of refinery at Raigad by Aramco. Aramco is a Saudi Arab company. Okay. Now we will not go into detail that Future Invest initiative is being taken by the Prince of Saudi Arab, and then what the World Bank is talking about the Saudi Arab in terms of economic power. We will not go into detail of that. We will just mentioning that how the India-Saudi Arab relation is going on, and that is deviating from the energy and the diaspora to the strategic convergence. Understood? Likewise, with India UAE relationship, we can talk about that we have the comprehensive strategic partnership. Comprehensive strategic partnership. And this partnership is basically cooperation in cyberspace, defense, human trafficking, etc. Okay. Then in terms of economy, we have moved from the focus of energy to the investment by the UAE, and about US $8 billion has been invested in terms of FDI in India, and also there is a cooperation from the UAE company in railway. And also whenever you look into the National Infrastructure Fund, then you will find that major investment is being done by UAE. And also with UAE we have a lot of military exercises under the annual defense dialogue. And this defense dialogue, you can relate it to the military exercises of Desert Eagle. So these are the things which you can mention. If you want to talk something about the another countries, then you can talk about India Bahrain also. India Bahrain, because recently an MOU has been signed between Benefit. This is a company in Bahrain. Okay, the Benefit company has signed an agreement with NPCI, that is National Payment Corporation of India, for the launch of RuPay card. And then also Bahrain has shown interest to be the part of International Solar Alliance. Okay, and then there is also an MOU on space technology, MOU on space technology and solar energy collaboration. These are the things which can be mentioned under this head. Now you will say, सर ओमान नहीं बताया आपने, कुवैत नहीं बताया, इतना बता ही नहीं सकते हैं, 10 मार्कर का क्वेश्चन है, ये नहीं बता सकते हैं. ओके. Now, what are the challenges India is facing in having the stable relation with the countries of the West Asia? The very first thing is dispute amongst them, or you can say the dispute among GCC, that is Gulf Cooperation Council. We have just seen the isolation of Qatar by Saudi Arab and UAE, and then Qatar has not decided to be the part of Gulf Cooperation Council summit. Such kind of fractured politics is being observed in the West Asia, where India finds a very hard time to navigate through the troubled waters of the West Asia. Understood? Now, the second point, you can talk simply about the ethnic conflict, that is Shia Sunni conflict, and its repercussions on the domestic considerations or domestic politics of India. Then you can talk about the balance, how India should balance between Iran and Saudi Arab. Why I'm talking about the balance between Iran and Saudi Arab? It is because both are the powerful countries of the West Asia, and both want to be the tiger of Persian Gulf. So basically, there is a lot of ideological, economical power of tussle between Iran and Saudi Arab. So how India should maintain the balance between these two. Now you can talk about the foul play game by the great powers. You can observe in the terms of Syria how Russia and USA is playing their own game in this region, and it is not for the first time. You can observe the foul play game by the great powers since the outbreak of Ottoman Empire. Okay. Next, you can talk about the terrorism. Terrorism is a very important issue that is emanating from the West Asia. So, how India should respond to this. Then you can also talk about the Israel-Palestine issue. Now you cannot go in detail of Israel-Palestine issue, but just you can talk about that how Arab world looks at the dispute of Israel and Palestine and how India should navigate in this dispute. This is the challenge that India faces in the West Asia. Understood? Now moving to the next question, that it is impossible to run a 21st century economy with 19th century bureaucracy using 18th century rules. अब ये क्वेश्चन देख के तुम्हें पसीने आ गए होंगे कि यार ये क्या है, इसको कैसे लिखना है, लेकिन ये क्वेश्चन कुछ है ही नहीं. नाउ फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ आई सिंपली आस्क यू व्हाट इज द इशू इन ब्यूरोक्रेसी, अगर व्हाट इज द इशू इन द ब्यूरोक्रेसी का क्वेश्चन ये है, इट इज इम्पॉसिबल टू रन, बोथ आर द सेम क्वेश्चन. ठीक है, अब नाउ इट विल बी इजी फॉर यू टू आंसर दिस क्वेश्चन. Then substantiate the statement and suggest how to reform the civil service in the current context. So basically, reform in the civil service. What happens with the aspirants, that the random points comes in their mind, but you will have to structure something in your mind. For example, just by looking at this word, that is reform in the civil service, three things comes in my mind. What are those three things? That what are the reforms required at the time of recruitment. Second, what are the reforms required in training? What are the reforms required to bring efficiency in the system? Now after that, I will divide my entire points under these three different heads, taking the examples or taking the help of different committees constituted for bringing reform in the civil service. Understood? So now, this is not about the question on 21st century economy, 19th century bureaucracy. It is just like a trap for you. Okay. So simply you can start your introduction with जिसमें तुम लोग माहिर हो. मुझे पता है कि 90% students will talk about the steel frame. Okay, you can start your answer from the steel frame in the introduction. After that, why this statement is talking about that we have a 19th century bureaucracy which is insufficient to run the 21st century economy. So now, the very first thing you can talk about, colonial hangover. What is this colonial hangover? This hangover says that use power arbitrarily because you are the Maharaja. तुम महाराजा हो, अपने पावर को arbitrarily भी यूज करो. You don't need to follow the rule of the law. Rule of the law is simply means that you show me the man, I will show you the rule. So accordingly, it means that the rules changes with the stature of the person. Okay. So colonial hangover. Then you can talk about the delay in decision making process. क्योंकि इनएफिशिएंट होने में कुछ पैसा नहीं लगता है ब्यूरोक्रेसी में. यू आर नॉट इन द प्राइवेट जॉब, इफ यू आर नॉट टेकिंग एनी डिसीजन ऑन द नेक्स्ट डे यू विल बी फायर्ड, बट दिस इज नॉट द केस हियर. द डिले इन डिसीजन मेकिंग प्रोसेस, then lack of accountability. Okay, then the mindset, this is very important, mindset, because using 18th century rules, 19th century bureaucracy, 21st century economy, we need to change the mindset. And what's the mindset of the bureaucrats? The mindset is of bada babu, मैं ही हूं जो हूं, bada babu, or माई बाप culture. माई बाप culture is most visible in the feudal states like Bihar, UP, Odisha, West Bengal. Whenever you will look into the bureaucracy of this region, then you will be much more familiar with the Mai Bap culture. But it is not that. It is only in these states. It is prevalent in different degree in the different states because the problem is of the Mai Bap culture. Okay. Then you can talk about the politicization of administration. These are the things which are required to put under this head, that it is impossible to run a 21st century economy. Because 21st century economy, what requires? It requires efficiency. It requires effectiveness. It requires transparency. It requires accountability, and everything is missing in the 19th century bureaucracy. And the reason for this is the points which we have mentioned. Now we will move into that what kind of reforms is required in the civil service. So for this, I am dividing my answer likewise, that what reforms required in recruitment. So you can use the HOTA committee here. HOTA committee says that for recruitment, we need to take leadership and aptitude test. Okay. And in the recruitment, it is also being observed that the second ARC have suggested for the lateral entry, and already lateral entry have been started. Lateral entry, it simply means you can mention that it infuse fresh ideas and openness in risk taking. There are many points which you can put under the lateral entry. It depends on how much space you have under the 10 marker question. The second is training. एक बार लवासना से ट्रेनिंग हो गई या जहां से भी हो गई, जैसे एसपीबीसी हो गई आईपीएस की, फिर से फरीदाबाद में हो गई, नागपुर में हो गई आईआरएस वगैरह की, तो एक बार ट्रेनिंग हो गया तो हो गया. Therefore, Yugandhar committee has suggested that there should be 3 mid-career training program. Mid-career training program. What is this 3 mid-career training program? The first training program should be conducted at 12th year of the service, the second at 20th year of the service, and the third as 28th year of the service. At the 3 times there should be the training of the civil servant. Then you can talk about domain expertise. क्योंकि हर आदमी हर चीज नहीं जान सकता है. One cannot be the master of all. Okay, or you can say one can be the master of all, but not jack of not all. Okay, तो basically you can simply say that master नहीं बन सकते हो हर चीज का. Okay, मास्टर ऑफ ऑल जैक ऑफ नन बोला जाता है ना, तो वही है ये. ओके, तो मास्टर नहीं बन सकते हो. अब ऐसा करना है यहाँ पर कि यू कैन यूज द सुरेंद्र नाथ कमिटी इन योर आंसर. This Surendra Nath committee says that there are different or 11 domains. For example, communication, agriculture, energy, financial management. These are 11 domains which is required for the governance. Now, any civil servant must be equipped or must be provided training in 3 different domain areas. So these are the recommendations which can be given. Basically, why they are talking about this? Because it will infuse the professional excellence amongst the civil servant. So these reforms can be given in the answer with respect to the civil service reform. I hope you are understanding that how to divide the answer. Okay. Now, the next question, that what are the common factors that contributed to the emergence of Indian diaspora as a powerful economic players? Highlight the concerns of rising Indian diaspora. This question simply asking about that why diaspora is increasing. Then you can divide your answer into push and pull factor. Okay, that what is the issue in India? Okay, and what are the things that is pulling Indians to these countries, for example, Canada, West Asia, USA, Southeast Asian nation like Singapore, Malaysia, okay, Indonesia. What are the different factors that the people are moving towards these countries, and the reasons for the emergence of Indian diaspora as a powerful economic players? Okay, so we will look into that, and then we will highlight the concerns. Okay, but before that, in this question, you can start your introduction that India's diaspora is of 31 million. 31 million में क्या है कि 17 million आज PIO and rest 14 million is NRI. And this 31 million lives in 146 countries. Okay, after that you can just highlight that what are the reasons for rising Indian diaspora. First of all, you will have to talk about that the reasons for increasing Indian diaspora, then only it can be related to that how they are emerging as a key economic players. Okay, so contribution is basically good career opportunities they are getting, good career opportunities mostly in IT. And then you can talk about Sundar Pichai, Indra Nooyi. Okay, in this way you can, it is not related to IT. Okay, the Sundar Pichai you can, and then Indra Nooyi also you can highlight. Then you can say that international students, or they are basically getting a scholarship from the universities of Australia, USA, Europe, and therefore there is a rise in international students. Then dynamism of Indian diaspora. Dynamism of Indian diaspora. Okay. And this dynamism of Indian diaspora is promoting entrepreneurship. अब तुम कनाडा चले जाओ तो टैक्सी से लेके आईटी और आईटी से लेके पॉलिटिक्स हर कुछ इंडियन चला रहे हैं. ओके. देन यू कैन टॉक अबाउट इंक्रीजिंग इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ डायस्पोरा एंड डोमेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स. अब देखो डोमेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स में डायस्पोरा रहेंगे तो ऑब्वियसली दे विल हेल्प द इंडियन पीपल एंड दैट इंडियन पीपल कैन इमर्ज एज ए इकोनॉमिक प्लेयर. ओके. डायस्पोरा एंड डोमेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स. देखो ये क्वेश्चन बहुत ही इजी हो जाता अगर मैं ये वर्ड यूज नहीं करता तो इकोनॉमिक प्लेयर. अब ये क्वेश्चन थोड़ा टफ हो गया. टफ नहीं हुआ है, ये ट्रिकी हो गया है क्योंकि एग्जाम में यू विल अंडरस्टैंड कि अरे हाउ आई कैन राइट सच क्वेश्चन. देयरफॉर आई हैव गिवन यू दिस क्वेश्चन दैट डोंट गेट पैनिक इन द एग्जामिनेशन. व्हाटएवर you know your best capability, you know of your best capability. Okay, so basically you will have to use that knowledge linking the question and fulfilling the demand of the question. Okay, इसलिए ये क्वेश्चन दिया हूं मैं. Diaspora in the domestic politics. Now here you can give the example of Meghnad Desai. You can talk about the Preeti Kaur Gill in UK. Okay, then you can talk about the networking with the industry. Networking with the industry. This is the one way of answering the question. The second way of answering the question that you can divide the country wise. For example, in the South Asia you can talk about Indonesia, Southeast Asia. Then in Indonesia most of the Indians are involved in sports industry, गुड्स इंडस्ट्री, टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री. तो अब क्या होगा, ये अपने घर वाले को वहां लेके जाते हैं और इस तरीके से एक आदमी जब छोटे से दुकान से शुरू करता है और इंडस्ट्री तक चला जाता है. लाइकवाइज यू कैन गिव द एग्जांपल ऑफ इटली. आई कैन गिव द एग्जांपल दैट देयर इज एन ऑटो पार्ट फैक्ट्री in Italy by Ranjit Singh, and all the workers who are working in that factory is from India. Okay, with the coming of the time they will emerge as an entrepreneur in this region. So this is the reason for emerging them as an economic player in these countries. So these are the things which you are required to put in your answer. Now, the second part of the question is that what is the issue with the diaspora or what are the challenges they are facing. So majorly the challenges which is being faced by them in West Asia is sometimes the West Asian countries comes with the labor laws that puts the Indian migrants at the disadvantageous position. For example, Nitakat law of Saudi Arab, you can put in your answer. Then you can also talk about that the West Asia is the focal point of extremism, and sometimes in the wake of extremism we need to evacuate our Indian migrants from there. For example, you can talk about Libya, Oman, and it happens with the Iran-Iraq war. During the Iran-Iraq war it also happened. So these are the things which you can mention in the West Asia. And then again you can talk about in the case of Australia, in case of USA, you can talk about the racial attacks on Indian. Okay, then in case of UK, Canada, you can talk about the Khalistan issue, that how the Khalistan grouping is being supported by the Indian migrants. Then you can talk about that all have an implication on the foreign policy. Whenever you will too much interested in the Indian diaspora, then there is a highly chance that the foreign policy imperatives gets disturbed, and it has been seen in the case of Fiji. Whenever India has supported the Fiji cow in 1990s or 80s, then it has been observed that the foreign policy dynamics with the Fiji has changed. So this way you can give the challenges that the people are facing in this region or the Indian diaspora is facing the problem. Then in the conclusion you can talk about the steps taken by the government. For example, No India program. Then you can talk about Madad protocol, Madad platform, you can say Madad platform. So now moving to question number 9, that is citizen charter has a bearing on the overall state of public administration and should be reviewed in the context of its bearing on the state of governance. Analyze. Basically this question simply demands you to talk about that what is the importance of citizen charter, what is the idea of citizen charter, and what is the issue with the citizen charter. However, this question does not demand that you need to give suggestion, but I have always advised you that to at least give 2 suggestion in 10 marker and 3 to 4 suggestion in 15 marker question. So now we will look into that how we can address such question, because the statement or the framing of the question looks like a little bit confusing, but the question is very simple. That is, it is asking about the importance of citizen charter. So now citizen charter, first of all, in introduction you can define that what is citizen charter. Citizen charter is commitment for the superiority of the service. Basically, whatever the services you are providing, then you will have to take the commitment for the superiority in that service. Commitment for superiority. Okay. And this citizen charter highlights the 3 different pillars of the governance, that is transparency, accountability, and responsiveness. Okay. Now, what are the salient feature of the citizen charter? That how you can say that the citizen charter which I have prepared have a bearing on the state of public administration, and it will result into improving the state of governance. So for that, you will have to focus on the standards or the features of citizen charter. The features of the citizen charter is the very first thing, that is standard setting. That you are basically setting the standards, that what kind of services or what will be the standard of your services which you are going to provide. The second is openness and information. With respect to openness of information, whatever the services you are being provided, it should not be opaque, it should be open, and information must be provided to the citizens or the people who are taking your services. Then there must be provision for redressal grievance. Provision for redressal of grievance. And next is choice and consultation. The citizen charter which you are going to prepare, it must be consulted with the citizens who are taking your services. And the choice, you will have to give the choice for the services. बाजार में जाते हो तो वो दिखलाता है ना, ये ले लीजिए, ये ले लीजिए, 550 की, 1000 की, 1500 की, ये बनारसी, ये दूसरी टाइप की साड़ी. तो basically you will have to provide the choice to the citizen. Now, after mentioning this and elaborating this point, that what do you understand by the standard setting, openness, provision, and the choice and consultation, you will have to talk about that what is the challenge or issue with the citizen charter. So now, what is the issue with the citizen charter? This has been reviewed by Public Affairs Center. Okay, this has been reviewed by Public Affairs Center. And the first issue which has been highlighted by the Public Affairs Center, that wherever the citizen charter have been prepared, it is devoid of participation of the citizens. Devoid of participation of the citizen. So basically, the basic feature of the citizen charter, that it should be prepared by the wide consultation, is not being followed. Second is, there whenever the citizen charter is being prepared, whether it has been prepared in English or in Hindi. So basically there is an absence of vernacular language. Okay, it should be in the Marathi, it should be in Gujarati, it should be in the even in the dialect of the other languages, it should be. Okay, if you want to really provide the best services to your citizen. Then there is a lack of public awareness. People are not aware that whatever the services you are providing, what kind of choice you are giving to the citizen, they are not aware about that. The reason is that they don't want to be aware, or the second reason is that you are not giving information in a transparent way. Then there is a lack of updation. एक बार बना दिए सिटीजन चार्टर, बस हो गया. 2005 में बना दिए, 2020 तक वही सिटीजन चार्टर चल रहा है. तो lack of updation. Then there is a little interest by the officers. Little interest by the officer in adhering to the ideals of citizen Charter or the standards given in the Citizen Charter. They are not adhering to that. This is the issue with the Citizen Charter. This is a very simple question. Now, the suggestions which you can give in this question with respect to the Citizen Charter is, first suggestion is that one should be accountable. Any officer must be accountable in the terms of updation of the Citizen Charter. Hold the accountability of a single officer. Then awareness must be provided. How we can increase the awareness? We can make an arrangement of pamphlets. We can make an arrangement of booklets. We can make an arrangement of may I help you counter. Okay. Then there must be a feedback mechanism. And for feedback mechanism, we can go for toll-free number. Okay. Then you can talk about redressal mechanism must be strong. So these are the things which can be written. As it is a 10 marker question, it can be easily addressed in 150 to 160 words. Now the next question is, despite its limitations, social audit is useful tool to provide assurance to the stakeholder. Now the question is asking firstly about the limitation, but it does not mean that you will start writing about the issue with the social audit. Even in this case, you will have to first highlight the importance of social audit. Importance of social audit. Okay. Then you will have to highlight that what is the issue with the social audit. Then again you will have to follow that what are the suggestions you can give with respect to bring a reform in the social auditing. So now you can start your introduction by giving the definition of social audit, that what is this all about. Basically, this is a technique to understand. This is a technique to understand, measure and verify report and thus improve the social performance of the organization. Or you can simply say RTI plus public hearing is equal to social audit. Because how the social auditing will be performed when we don't have information? First of all, we need have an information, then that information will be shared amongst the groups of the Gram Sabha members, then we can go for the social auditing. So now the next question is, what are the benefits of the social auditing? Now we have seen a practical application of the social auditing also in terms of reducing corruption and a strengthening of the Gram Sabha. Basically, whenever you are giving the job of social auditing to the Gram Sabha, you are also focusing on increasing the capacity building of the Gram Sabha. Then the social auditing helps in prioritization of the developmental activity. What kind of developmental activity you want in your area, that must be prioritized. Okay. For example, any area may have the problem of drinking water, may have the problem of bad roads, may have the problem of lack of good public spaces, may have the problem of lack of public toilets. But what should be the priority for that particular area? Okay, everything cannot be prepared at a time. तो प्रायोरिटी डिसाइड करे, जिसको बेनिफिट लेना है वही प्रायोरिटी डिसाइड करे. ओके. देन द नेक्स्ट बेनिफिट of the social auditing is that the quality of the service will also improve, because there will be a proper monitoring and evaluation by the beneficiary itself. Then the last we can talk about that the proper utilization of the fund will be done. Proper utilization of fund. These are the benefits of the social audit. Then we will move into the issue with the social audit. Issue with the social audit. The very first issue is apathy of implementing agency, or you can say apathy of bureaucracy. अरे ब्यूरोक्रेसी अपने सर पे क्यों फालतू का ये सोशल ऑडिट के चक्कर में फिर से वो सारा काम कराए और एक तरीके की अकाउंटेबिलिटी फिक्स हो जाती है। तो ब्यूरोक्रेट नहीं चाहते हैं कि सोशल ऑडिट हो, तो एपैथी ऑफ ब्यूरोक्रेसी। देन rules are not followed. Here I just want to talk about one thing, that we have social audit units. Okay, these social audit units helps in monitoring and evaluation and works in collaboration with the gram sabha members, and this social audit must follow the guidelines given by the CAT, but these rules are not followed. Okay, you may see in the terms of appointment of the officers of the social audit units, then there is a lack of transparency in their appointment. Then the next point you can mention that again there is a lack of awareness amongst the people with respect to social audit. Then there is no follow up. एक बार social audit हो गया तो उसके क्या मेरिट्स निकले, क्या डिमेरिट्स निकले, तो उसका फॉलो अप नहीं होता इंडिया में. This is the another problem. Then you can also talk about that the lack of legal safeguards. सोशल ऑडिट लीगल सेफगार्ड्स नहीं है. केवल देखो एमजी नरेगा में सेक्शन 17 में लिखा हुआ है कि सोशल ऑडिट करनी है. फिर मेघालय ने इसको एक लीगलाइज्ड किया है, सोशल ऑडिटिंग. अदरवाइज द सोशल ऑडिटिंग इज नॉट having the legal safeguards. Okay, after mentioning the issue, you can talk about the suggestions with respect to reform in the social audit process. Reform or suggestions in the social audit. Then first you can talk about the frequency. What do you understand by the frequency? ये नहीं कि सुबह उठे किसी दिन जाके सोशल ऑडिट करा लाए और फिर 6 महीना सोए हुए हैं. The frequency must be fixed, that it should be done within the 3 months, or it should be done within the 6 months, it should be done within the year, it should be done within the 2 months. The frequency must be fixed and must be adhered. And then you can talk about the legal safeguards must be provided to social audit. Then you can talk about that there must be a mechanism of punitive action against non-compliance. Okay, these are the things which you can mention in your answer as a kind of suggestions to bring the reform in social audit. So this is the end of the discussion of test 3 of GS paper 2, and this is the end of the GS paper 2 mains answer writing module under handholding program. Now from the next session now from the next test, we are starting, or we are coming with the questions on the test 3, and already you have the syllabus of the test of the GS paper 3. Kindly go through that, build your own content, and then start answer writing. And we are again coming with that how to address the question in GS paper 3. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed the entire session and entire discussion of the GS paper 2. So kindly give in the comment section that how do you like the questions, how do you like the discussions, or whether you want to bring the change in the question or in the discussion.